Hey everybody, we are back at Deer Lake today. We will be having the amazing opportunity to talk to Tom Nelson once again. He is our resident spring expert, and he will be telling us about their entire spring research project that was conducted back in 2013 on their Deer Lake right here. He will be explaining the process that they went through to find the springs. He'll also be talking about the units that they use to collect the data, and then we'll be talking a little bit about why they put up this entire research project and any future plans they might have. So the dense reeds right there are the spring. It kind of looks like a shore, but it's not. That's the spring itself. It's allowing the thrive of all those plants.
When you wander out into the lake, there's cold spots everywhere. Some much colder than others. There's a degree of variation from the spring flow, but it's quite a bit in a large area, right? Probably 200 feet across from where I live in these spring beds. The springs don't tend to be what you normally think of, just a little hole in the ground with water coming out. And usually they come in trenches as one layer of clay or it meets a layer of sand, and the water can come out between it and the sand, compressed by and controlled by the clay. The best way to find those other springs is in the winter, because those areas where there is groundwater movement coming out, usually very near shore, you can tell because the ice will be melted, or it looks different. It's thinner ice. They're pretty easy to find. I went around the lake in the winter, just trudged along on skis further out where the ice was good, and just observed and photographed the shore all pretty much about 2/3 to 3/4 of the way around the lake, looking for these spring areas, and that was all documented and put into the 2013 diagnostic that the PCA did with the soil and water people here. Basically, once we discovered that there was this big spring bed, we wanted to study it more. So we laid out a grid pattern using ropes and very systematically on 2-meter intervals in that square grid, probably 100 by 100. We took temperature measurements of the center of each one of those grids, and then recorded those temperatures, and then put it in a program, and you got this temperature kind of map of the grid area, which is also online. Very, very interesting. But that was done very scientifically and very carefully. Following that, we then, once we had that map of where the springs were and how much degree, where the more intense ones, where the lighter ones were, as you can see on the website, then seepage meters were put in at strategic locations to try to see how much actual water was flowing. The seepage meters are these cut off drums with a spout coming off the top, which you connect a plastic bag to, and whatever water is coming up from into that meter will flow into the bag. And then you time it, and so in maybe an hour that bag will fill in, and so you have both a timing and an amount of water to measure to what extent the water is flowing into the lake through a typical spring like that. And there were 25 meters in one grid, and we did a second grid with another probably 15, 18 meters within that grid as well, right next to the first one. That was monitored pretty much all summer and into the winter, where I was cutting a hole in the ice, so it had just a few meters left in over the winter, just to see what would happen, see whether they're still flowing or not, and yes, they were. Pretty much the same. They're very consistent. It's not, you would think it would be rain dependent, because the source of this water would seem to be a very just sort of surface water soaking in right behind an ice berm on shore, and then flowing out into these. I mean, that's what you'd think, but given the consistency of the flow as against the rain events, it's more than that. It's quite a bit of groundwater coming up just beyond the ephemeral rain situations, events. Well, this was part of the diagnostic study that wanted to determine where the water sources were and thus where the pollution sources could be. And so we were measuring just the rainwater. We were measuring how much flowing was coming in for tributaries. There's, I think, 16, 17 small tributaries. A lot of them are ephemeral. But we went around and measured the flow rates of those. Also did lots of water sampling in the lake itself. Collected dust to see how much dust was coming into the lake through the rainwater. All that was written up in a 200-page diagnostic report, which you can find. We have not done anything since then, but we still have the seepage meters, we still have the temperature gauges, we could even recreate those grids. Enough of the markers were left in place that we could recreate it if we thought we needed to. I'm not sure that there is a need at this point. I think probably what we've learned from that study probably is what we need to know at this point. But if we can think of a reason to do it again, we're ready.